The following podcast contains alcohol-enhanced conversations about alcohol, as well as a potential for discussions about other topics of dubious, disturbing, possibly offensive, but usually hilarious interest. The opinions stated herein are solely of the person stating them, and any endorsement of these opinions by any other party is not implied. Foul language is likely, but intolerant viewpoints are not. Listener intoxication is advised. Hello and welcome to the 19th episode of the Whiskey Tangent Podcast. I'm Scott.
I'm Ed, and they said it wouldn't last.
19, we're close to being able to drink. And tonight we're doing something a little bit different than we've done before by focusing on a single distillery, one that we've encountered a number of times in the past but never actually talked about.
Correct.
As well as 7 whiskeys that they produce. 6 we had at a recent tasting, and 1 more we bought especially for this episode.
Ooh.
With each one a uniquely individual expression, and nearly each one could have been one of the whiskeys that we highlighted on previous episodes. So after doing nothing but beer in our last episode, strap yourself in for a fairly whiskey-heavy adventure in taste. And Ed's going to start us off with which distillery we're talking about and a little bit about why they're so unique.
Right, so we're doing Hillrock, which is one that I fell into a long time ago. I actually brought one of the expressions to a whiskey tasting that Scott had at his house.
Yeah, that we talked about a few times, but just in passing, we talked about it. Yeah.
And I thought it should have won, and it didn't.
Yeah, it was surprising.
So the Hillrock, first of all, it's a New York distillery, which it's got a very interesting history. In the early 1800s, New York produced more than half of our nation's barley and rye, the actual crops. And the Hudson Valley, besides producing a lot of good artists around the end of the 1800s,
who?
Well, the Hudson Valley Impressionists, there was a group that went over to Paris and studied with, Monet and Manet.
Artists.
Right, yeah, artists.
Painting
people.
Gotcha.
So like the Hudson River Valley was a very famous place for landscape paintings and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
But besides that, they were the country's breadbasket, along with New Jersey, which were called the Garden State. So thanks for shitting all over us. But we are actually part of that. But more in the 1700s, to be honest. But I digress. I tangented in an unfunny and uninformative way.
Edit.
Right. Local craft spirits flourished, and over 1,000 farm distilleries, 1,000 farm distilleries produced whiskey and gin, reflecting the unique character of the region. Prohibition forced these distilleries to shut their doors, and the wellspring of American spirits was left dry. Hillrock Estate Distillery is changing this. Hillrock is proud to be one of the few field-to-glass whiskey producers in the world, and the first USA distillery since Prohibition to handcraft whiskey on site from estate-grown grains. Okay?
Yes.
And it's all crowned by a fine 1806 Georgian house built by a successful grain merchant and a Revolutionary War captain, which has been meticulously restored to its original beauty. Every detail is refined, no expense is spared, and the quality is steeped in a tradition that goes back 200 years. It's a very interesting distillery and an interesting part of the country, actually, when it comes to whiskey.
Yeah, so the tasting that we went to was at our local lounge.
Right. So we had, once again, 6 different Hillrock expressions. Now, here's what makes that unique, everybody. Hillrock is not giving away their whiskey, all right? But their bottles are around $90. So,
and as we go through these whiskeys and we talk about them, you're going to find out why.
Right. These are crafted. So they grow the grain, they cut it down, they bring it in, they grind it up, they process it. I mean, this is a very unique situation. So you're going to pay a couple extra dollars for that. Yeah,
you said it in your intro.
Right.
Field to glass. It's sort of the whiskey equivalent of farm to table.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the point I'm trying to make is to drink 6 of these side by side and to be able to compare and taste them, it's something you rarely can do.
It was special.
Even if you're in our lounge and you're buying the ones that they have on the menu, it's $20 a glass.
Without the food, which was amazing. So we're going to talk about them in each round.
Right.
So
round 1, the start.
Round 1, the whiskey was the Hillrock Estate Solera aged bourbon. So this is basically their basic spirit.
Right. This is their franchise, really. And we'll talk about many of the expressions that come after this. Is their Solera with something done to it, right?
Yeah. So the Solera aged bourbon, we talked about the Solera process in our short that we did about our infinity bottle, because that's where the entire concept for the infinity bottle came from, was the Scottish guy on YouTube, whose name I forget. His inspiration for creating what became known as the infinity bottle was the Solera system. And that was where they have the tiers of different whiskey barrels, and they're filling them with each other's whiskeys. A little bit from the first one goes into the second, to the third, to the fourth. The age and complexity gradually increases over time, and it produces a very consistent spirit. This particular one from Hillrock, after cascading through the Solera, the bourbon is finished in 20-year-old Oloroso, did I say that right? Oloroso sherry casks.
You're asking me that?
Yeah. The finishing process balances the spicy rye flavors of the bourbon and adds further complexity with, they say, sweet yet slightly spicy from the rye. It has notes of brown sugar, maple syrup, rock candy, and toffee. The spicy notes include clove and cinnamon, well balanced with roasted corn, toast, and raisin. Sherry finishing adds flavors of walnut, fig, and candied fruit with notes of sweet caramel and butterscotch. The current age of the Solera is over 6 years, and the rye content is approximately 37%.
So they brought out the Hillrock Solera aged bourbon, 92.6 proof, and they paired that with a pan-seared scallop with raw fennel salad and blood oranges and a blood orange and Solera bourbon reduction with a white balsamic vinaigrette over the fennel salad. It was delicious and spectacular.
It really was. It was like I was at a high-end, really expensive restaurant.
Absolutely. I could have gone with 2 scallops or 4 or whatever it was.
Was it only one? I forget.
I think there was 2. Maybe.
Yeah, there were 2, yeah. Don't get greedy.
But 2 scallops to me is like, I eat 2 scallops when I think about how much I like scallops. All right, so round 2, they brought out a Hillrock Estate Solera bourbon in a
Cabernet finish.
92.6.
Yeah. They finished their regular Solera aged bourbon that we just talked about, which was finished in sherry cask, and they finished it again into Napa Valley Cabernet wine casks.
True.
The tasting notes of that: caramel vanilla nose, replete with cherry, blackberry, citrus, and sweet taffy, caramelized sugar, plum, and caramel. Warm and sweet notes of vanilla, toffee, and French oak, complemented by a bouquet of black cherry, currant, violet, and nuts, complete the palate before leading to a long and vanilla-focused finish, highlighted with cherry and Cabernet flavors.
Now, I'm just going to say that the inclusion of violet in that is obnoxious, and I'm not going to let it go, okay? That's an obnoxious thing to put in there. What the fuck does violet taste like?
It's incredibly ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
I bet it didn't taste.
I'm not just going to sit here and smile at that. Like, oh, violet. Yeah, I taste the violet. What the fuck? I taste the violence in my fucking anger right now, because when you talk to me like that, it makes me want to go crazy. Because am I such a fucking ruffian that I don't taste violet in this? I'm getting all wound up now. And once again, I love Hillrock. Did they write that? Is this their tasting?
Actually, no.
Oh, thank fucking God.
Well, so here's the problem with Hillrock. They don't have all of their expressions on their website.
Yeah, it's very crazy.
They only had 3, and it was their base. It was their the Solera bourbon, the double cask rye, and the single malt.
Right. Actually, that's the only 3 products they have. They just turn them into different expressions.
Yeah, then they finish them. So I couldn't find a lot of information on them and their website. So I went to separate websites to get all this stuff. So yeah, don't be mad at Hillrock for violet.
Right, that wasn't Hillrock didn't call their shit violet.
No.
Okay? But listen, my tasting notes are: it tasted like the Solera, and then there was like a sweet currant dark cherry. I'm all over that finish to it. It definitely had a different finish than the original, and it was nice. And I was oh, this is good. And they paired it with
a deconstructed stuffing. So all of these were sort of separate on a plate. And it was olive tamponade, croutons, a mushroom medley, mixed carrot, celery, and cranberries, and a chicken consomme in the middle.
Right. It was really interesting.
It was interesting.
It was fun. It kept us busy while they got the next pour ready.
While we were tasting the Cabernet. I did like the Cabernet better than the regular Solera.
So at this point, it's got to be like, okay, so we're like, second round, we're like, all right, this is 1 and round 1 is 2. We got it. This is how we do. We keep track. You know?
Yeah. If we did our jobs better, we would have wrote down our tasting impressions at the time.
I just told you.
No, but at the time we would have wrote everything down.
I could have a whole filing cabinet at home where I just studied before I came here. You don't know. I could have tattooed black currant on my neck. You have no idea what I did.
You know what? I'm about to get violet.
Round 3.
Round 3. The whiskey was the Hillrock Estate Double Oak Rye Port finish.
Right. So I was excited about that because I had that once a long time ago and I didn't remember what it tasted like, but I remember I liked it.
And we had just done our port finished whiskey episode.
And we had done a double oak barrel one.
Or we were just about to do it. I don't remember the timing, but...
I can't remember. And we had just done a Willet and a High West rye episode too. So there was a lot of things going on with this that made us excited to try it.
Right. So this could have fit into 3 different episodes that we did.
And it was good, by the way. It was very good.
Oh, I really like the port finish. I think this was the one where the taste kind of died. Like it was really good. It didn't have a good finish to the end of it.
To me, it was still the best one at the time. I think Scott actually liked the cab finish better before it.
I did. I was surprised that I didn't like the port one as much.
But its proof is down a little bit from the Solera. It's like a 90.
Yeah. 4 to 6 weeks in export barrels. So not very long at all. The tasting notes were spiciness of the rye plays off the port in an interesting way, almost like a berry jam that was cooked and extra cinnamon sticks and nutmeg. The smoky flavors from the original whiskey add a pleasant puff in the finish. Dominant oaky and cedar notes blanket the rest of the flavor profile. This is for true rye heads looking for something different to try.
That's fair. It's definitely unique.
Yeah.
And they paired that with a, it was like a salad. It was like a chard scallion puree. Fuck. You better not leave that in. I'll fucking hate you. A chard scallion.
You're so angry right now. And you keep texting people. Tell them to stop.
I haven't texted anybody.
Okay.
A chard scallion puree is one of those words for me.
Do you want me to do it?
Yeah.
All right. So they paired it with a chard scallion puree, boucheron cream, roasted beets, and watercress.
It was delicious. So we're not really sure what the boucheron cream is. We looked it up, and the internet doesn't know what it is either.
All I found was face cream.
So Tim invented it.
Maybe.
So then round 4 came out. We're back to the Solera now. And this time, though, it's finished with a Pinot Noir. And we're back up to 92.6 again. And
I remember really liking this one.
It was amazing. I'm thinking, wow, this probably is going to be the best one of the day. It was really unique. Really good finish, especially because the double oaked rye didn't really have a tremendous finish. This definitely did.
Yeah. So the tasting notes on this one are the wine cask finished bourbon entices with a mellow caramel aroma. The drying palate, oh, I do remember that. It was like made your mouth dry. It wasn't unpleasant, but it definitely was drying. Right. Opens relatively woody, very woody, with cedar and spice and a hint of raisin, cocoa powder, vanilla, and almond tones, and rounds out with oaky edges, finishing with a flurry of cinnamon, clove, and nutmeg.
So this was paired with a duck confit. Am I saying that wrong too?
Yeah, confit.
Which was, I don't like duck, but I knew by this point in the tasting I was going to like whatever he brought out.
Yeah.
And it was in an almond butter sauce, an arugula salad, and a pickled cranberry puree. And it was very good.
That was delicious.
So then we knew we had one round left. And we're like, well, I really think that this Pinot Noir finish of the Solera is going to be the best.
Yeah.
But then they brought out what, Scott?
Yeah, they brought out the Hillrock Estate Solera Bourbon Sauternes finish. Sauternes being a type of wine. And that ended up being the best one of the night.
Bar none.
Yeah.
It was spectacular. It actually was down a little bit in proofage, down to 90.6. And it's known as Nectar of the Gods.
Yeah. It apparently has a signature balance of sweetness and acidity with nutty flavors and notes of apricot, honey, and peaches. So those were what was supposed to be imparted into the whiskey.
I remember it being kind of like brown sugary, a little bit of molasses aftertaste, but still, you really got the sweetness from the wine in it. It tasted almost like a port finish to me, I'll be honest with you. But we were like, wow. Like, we didn't expect it to beat the Pinot, but it really did.
It really did. So the tasting notes on the whiskey itself, the nose is full of caramel, dry fruit, vanilla, oak, and spice with a light floral aroma. The palate is full-bodied with decadent notes of brown sugar, molasses, toffee, butterscotch, apricots, honey, peaches, roasted corn, clove, cinnamon, and a small hint of spicy rye. That's a lot to put in a whiskey, and it was fucking delicious.
It was delicious, and they paired it with a mulled wine spiced pear, honey pound cake, and mascarpone.
Yeah.
Ariel, the pastry chef, it was one of her special creations.
Yeah, this was the dessert round.
Right, so then basically that's when we thought the tasting was over. And then Doug, who is the rep for Hillrock, he drove all the way down from the Hillrock Distillery over 3 hours just to be there. He pulled out the single malt expression that they create there.
It was smoky, right?
A little bit smoky. It wasn't over the top. It was drinkable. I still didn't like it because I don't like Scotch.
Right.
And it's the type of Scotch I don't like.
He described it, and I agreed, like opening a barn door and smelling it.
Yes, which that doesn't appeal to me. Like, oh, let me go put that in my mouth.
I know.
But people love it. I understand why. Listen, I always tell a story about I was at my friend's Christmas a couple years ago. He had an Ardbeg that was just smoky and peaty nightmare. And I took a sip of it and I hated everything about it. It was just like taking some grass from the ground that had been on fire and shoving it in my mouth. And I swallowed it and it was gone. There was like the finish was there, which was disgusting. But when it was gone, I remember going, wow, like I kind of missed it. Because when it was in my mouth, it was so complex and there were so many things firing off. I hated it, mind you. This is a weird thing. I hated it, but I did miss it when it was gone. Like there was like a little hole where that disgusting sip had been.
I feel like Scotch drinkers are masochists. They just like those flavors that you don't normally get in a whiskey that hasn't been peated. And it's kind of like a challenge to be able to taste one of the most obnoxious flavors. I mean, I'm not hating on Scotch people, but I think that's sort of the mindset that they get.
I don't know. You get used to it, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people have taken a sip of your whiskey and they go, oh my God, how do you drink this? It's like gasoline.
True.
It's like gasoline. Yeah. We're like, it's not like gasoline at all. And you're crazy, but that's what they taste.
Yeah, if you're only used to drinking like beer or wine and they taste the whiskey, and then they're immediately like, oh, God. So maybe, they think that we are sadists.
Right.
And we just have not reached the sadistic level of Scotch drinkers yet.
So tonight for our episode, I happened to come across a double cask rye finished in the Sauternes cask, like the Solera was.
Right.
And I've never had this, and neither has Scott. So
this is our 7th whiskey.
So that's what we're going to do right now, and I'm dying to try because we've been sitting here.
I know, it's been sitting here forever.
So let's try it. I mean, once again, I feel like all the Hillrocks, when you smell them, you get a very traditional bourbon nose, if you will. Caramel, vanilla, a little bit of spice.
I smell a little grape in this one.
I hear floral a lot. I don't smell floral a lot, but I kind of get that here.
Yeah, I get that.
It is very peppery rye. It's like actually like kind of tingling my nose a little bit.
Oh. Wow. Oh, that's so interesting.
There's no short finish on this one, man.
This is different than anything I've ever tasted.
I'm still tasting it neat.
Yeah, drink it on the rocks.
I'm going to switch on the rocks.
Yeah. What you were describing as a little bit hot for a 90 proof, that's gone now.
No, right. I would say that the ice cubes are probably halfway melted. So there's quite a lot of water infused into it. And this tastes like something you could drink all night. Like it's not as strong, and yet the flavors are still there. I'm tasting an orange now. I'm tasting a lot of the floral and the fruity that they said I was supposed to taste before. I'm tasting it now a lot more. I'm going to concur. I don't know that I've ever tasted anything quite like this, particularly in the rye family. I also have to say, except for the rum cask finishes that we've done, I've never tasted something that takes on the character of what it was finished in more than this.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm looking online to see if anyone can help us out with what we're tasting here, because it's super complex.
Where's our whiskey jug guy? He didn't do it?
I don't think so.
I bet he tastes red licorice in it. Tastes red licorice and everything. Somewhere he's like, no, I don't, goddammit.
He's yelling at us.
I know, he's yelling at us.
That would be great, because then he would know who we are.
He might know who we are. You don't know that.
Yeah,
we're getting more popular every single minute.
Every single minute. I can't find
it's fine.
I can't find it. We never really agree anyway.
Right. I mean, listen, here's the way we do it. It's $90 a bottle, and it's not something, you want to buy every day. But it's a treat for yourself or somebody else. It's a spectacular expression. I'm going to say that. The Hillrock double cask rye whiskey in the Sauternes finish.
So we should go into the other expressions that they have. In addition to the 7 that we just talked about, so they have a regular single malt, and then the double cask rye finished in PX sherry casks, and they have the double cask rye finished in Madeira casks. Oh, and that's it. Right. There were so many, so they have 10.
That's ones that you found.
Yeah, because like I said, they only have 3 on their website.
We didn't even talk about the fact that Hillrock has the greatest bottles this side of Willett's Pot Stills bottle in the whiskey industry. It is a thin kind of rectangle of a bottle with a giant cork stopper top to it with beautiful gold lettering and the Hillrock logo on the front. It'll tell you what you have. So this actually says double cask rye whiskey. That's all it says. But when you turn on the side, there's a label, and the label tells you that it's a Sauternes finish and all the other data you need. If you're looking for the presentation bottle to give somebody for a housewarming or to give your boss at Christmas or something that says you've arrived with a statement, Hillrock is the absolute way to go. right by itself, right in the bottle. You don't need a box or anything with it. Just sit on the counter and be like, hey, here, this is for you. And it's like, it just makes a statement.
It kind of looks like a giant bottle of cologne.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yes.
it's not, like you'd see in like
Right.
Macy's, there's fake ones,
Right.
but like, right. So that sounds like a criticism, but it's not.
No, not at all. So we really enjoyed the tasting, like I said earlier, because we were able to do all the expressions right next to each other. But sitting here and just focusing on this one, I think it's probably appropriate to tell you why Hillrock is so good. It goes a lot with who created the expressions, and that's Dave Pickerell. He's passed away. He's deceased, but
He died like a year ago.
yeah, he is an icon and has been responsible for, I think, a big part of the resurgence and the shift in the whiskey industry.
I found out that he played offensive tackle at West Point.
Yeah, he's a West Point graduate, and I did not know that he served in the military for 11 years
Yeah.
as a cavalry officer. Now, that doesn't mean he rode a horse, okay? My father was a cavalry officer. It means he was a tanker.
Oh.
It means he rode tanks around
Right.
and stuff like that.
Those are the new horses.
Right. Now, you could also be air cavalry, which is the helicopters.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a nickname for him. It's not really as official as the
The tankers.
right.
Right. You were an offensive tackle, weren't you?
I was. I actually, in college, I played defensive tackle.
Oh, defensive.
I don't know how I got over that. I was like the Mike Golick of the defensive line. And the main reason was I just was able to legally cheat. I was able to pick up tells from the other linemen on the other side, so I knew when they were going to snap the ball. So I would come off the ball with them and look incredibly fast.
Right. Well, yeah.
Yeah. And if you ran either of my gaps, I'd kill you. But if you ran a sweep the other way, like I wasn't tracking you downfield. I wasn't going to like hawk you down like 40 yards downfield. Oh, Ed got him. Ed came out of nowhere.
To be fair, most defensive tackles don't do that either.
Well, the good ones do.
Getting back to Dave Pickerell, after he served 11 years in the military, he got his master's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Louisville. And then he got a job as a master distiller at Maker's Mark.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for 13 years, where he was responsible for ensuring the quality and consistency of their bourbons.
An iconic brand. And so he probably learned a lot there, I would think. They're a pretty consistent distiller.
Yeah. Then he worked with WhistlePig.
Yeah, he was a big part of their resurgence, but their
Surgeons?
surgeons.
The original surgeons, yeah. And then he was part of the group that restored the George Washington Distillery in Mount Vernon, Virginia, which we shat all over.
We shit all over them, and I'll shit on them again.
In our episode 8, when we did the presidents.
Because they charge like $300 for a bottle of whiskey that's like moonshine.
Yeah, so this whiskey, like you said, it's between $80 and $90. That's how you're going to find them. And it's because they craft it all themselves. And it's
Dude,
a
the
small...
bottle's got to be worth $15.
I mean, they grow their own grain. They malt it right there on the farm. They distill it and they age it and they bottle it all there. So it's very handcrafted. And we talked about that where small distilleries have to charge a little bit more because they don't have the giant efficiency operations that like a Beam Suntory has.
Right. We talked about that with the Denver, the Colorado.
Yeah, the Breckenridge.
The Breckenridge, which is another small batch that's a little bit overpriced, I think. But being that they're smaller and handcrafted, you're going to pay for that.
Yeah, but the George Washington Distillery was ridiculous.
Fuck them. It's not necessary to just rob people like that.
Yeah, and the last thing I think that's really noteworthy was we talked about it on our last episode. He worked with Metallica to make the Blackened America whiskey.
Right. I'm not saying touring with Metallica helped speed his death, but it probably didn't help him any, I would imagine. I hear he was at a lot of Metallica shows.
Well, it was kind of cool to see Doug from the Hillrock talk about him. Wasn't he like assigned to be with him and be his like companion or something?
Yeah, he was like, we got to get Dave to the meeting type of job. Like, Dave, we have to go to the meeting tomorrow. You should come in. No, I'm going out with Metallica all night. Time do I have to be at the meeting? All right, well, the train leaves at 9, and he wouldn't be on a 9 o'clock train. They have to take a 10 o'clock train and be late.
Yeah, he had a couple funny stories about it.
Sound like an amazing man, though.
He did.
He really did.
Yeah.
Honestly, Hillrock is a really great distillery, and they make great products, and it was a tremendous experience to meet Doug and to be part of the tasting. Any of them, by the way, you're not going to be disappointed with any of the ones we talked about. You're not going to be like, oh my God, what's this? Even for $90, you're not going to be like, oh my God, I spent $90 on this. You're like, wow, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
And one thing else I want to say, just a personal message to people out there who grew up and had image of the world like I did, especially the fact that we had 9 planets in our solar system. I mean, this fact that we arbitrarily have to throw Pluto out after it's been a planet, it's not doing anything. It's minding its own fucking business. And all of a sudden, somebody has to decide that because a couple of Jupiter's moons are kind of like big.
No.
Oh, there could be.
No.
Shh, it's not your time yet. And There's an anti-Pluto guy next to me.
I'm not anti-Pluto. I love Pluto.
We named a dog Pluto or whatever he was on the
Oh, yeah, the Disney character.
Mickey Mouse.
Why can Goofy talk, but Pluto can't? They're both dogs. Explain that one.
Well, because...
Is Goofy a planet? No.
Goofy's a co-host.
Is he? Wait, what?
You.
Oh, I get you.
There's a whole asteroid belt with a lot of rocks floating around that probably are close to the size of Pluto. But Pluto's got this incredibly long, oblong orbit.
You're making my case for me.
And it's been doing fine. And, I made so many mobiles. It was like my go-to thing. Like every 3 years, I do another mobile on the solar system. And boom. Scott's here shitting all over my childhood. Again.
No, I only shit over Thanksgiving. Here's Pluto. So things change in science, okay? Science is not making you feel better. Science is not always right. Science progresses. It's about clarification of knowledge. Pluto was discovered in an era when we had discovered other giant planets like Neptune and Uranus. I'm not going to say Uranus because it's just a dumb name.
Uranus.
Uranus. Since then, we have discovered several objects that are as big, some bigger than Pluto.
I got one right here.
Yeah, it's not as big as Pluto. Don't flatter yourself.
It's closer to you than Pluto is, though.
It is closer. It looks bigger.
It looks bigger than Pluto right now.
And, they had to decide what they're going to do. Now, they could have named all of those things planets. There are 5 official ones, but there's dozens of others that haven't been observed enough for them to determine.
Are they closer than Pluto or farther away?
Well, one is in the asteroid belt that you alluded to, and that's Ceres, Ceres. And that one is almost as big as Pluto, and it's round. It's a world of its own. We should have to call that a planet too. I'm fine if we do that. But what the International Astronomical Union decided to do was come up with a new category and put Pluto in it. It's not a demotion. It's just a recategorization.
It sounds like someone just took your big office away and gave you a small office and told you it wasn't a demotion.
Well, I'm a human with feelings. Pluto has no feelings. Trust me, Pluto doesn't care what we think of it.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I agree that science is about evaluating and changing, but I don't know. I feel like life was easier when Pluto was a planet. And then you changed Pluto and all of a sudden all hell broke loose in America, as we know.
Well, correlation is not causation.
Look at the brain on Scott. All right, everybody. Well, is Pluto a planet? Scott says no.
I say no because the expert said no.
Send all your emails to Scott how you want Pluto to be a planet because Scott's in charge of that now. So please send all of your emails to whiskeytangent@gmail.com.
That's it.
Attention, Scott. Attention, Pluto's a planet.
Attention, you're right. Pluto is not a planet.
No. Attention, you're a fun sucker. Make Pluto a planet again.
Sucker. Make Pluto a planet again. MPPA. Right.
All right. Whatever, guys. We've now run out of constructive things to talk about. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Later.
If you enjoyed this podcast episode, be sure to check out our next episode, which is way better than this one.
Oh, yeah.
Also, follow and like our Facebook page at facebook.com/whiskeytangent. And follow us on Twitter at Whiskey Tangent. You can follow me personally at That Whiskey Guy. And follow Scott at Giant Cup of Awesome, spelled AWSUM, just to be annoying.
Hey.
You can email us any questions, comments, or love at whiskeytangent@gmail.com. And of course, you can find us always at our podcast website, whiskeytangent.podbean.com.